My dad refused to walk me down the aisle because my stepmom said it would overshadow my stepsister's wedding from 6 months ago. I'm going to do my best to get this all out without completely breaking down, but I can't make any promises. My parents split up when I was 8, and by the time I turned 12, my dad had already married Amy. She came with a daughter, Ezra, who was 10 then. And from the very beginning, it was obvious Ezra was her golden child, her delicate little princess. Meanwhile, I was just the kid who came with the deal. My dad didn't seem to notice the imbalance, probably because he was too focused on pleasing Amy and trying to be a model stepdad to Ezra. Somewhere in that, he forgot he already had a daughter. Now, I won't sit here and pretend I was some angel. The divorce hit me hard, and I acted out here and there. But I was a 12-year-old kid whose world had been flipped upside down. Suddenly I had to split my dad's attention with a woman and her daughter, neither of whom ever made me feel welcome. From the get-go, it felt like I was just tagging along in a story I wasn't meant to be part of. Amy never outright insulted me, but she had this passive-aggressive way of delivering little digs disguised as compliments. When I was struggling with stuff, she'd smile sweetly and say things like, "Ezra is just naturally graceful, some girls have it, and some need to work a bit harder." Or if I got upset over something, she'd look at me and say, "Ezra has such a gentle spirit. She never raises her voice or gets flustered like some children do." And my dad? He never stepped in. He was too busy trying to keep Amy happy to notice how it made me feel. Every time I tried to talk to him about how things were going, he'd brush it off. He'd say I was too sensitive or that I needed to make more of an effort to fit into the family. After a while, I started questioning myself, like maybe I really was the problem. Meanwhile, Ezra always got what she wanted. I got whatever was left over. On vacations, everything revolved around Ezra's preferences. If I wasn't excited about something, I was labeled difficult or ungrateful. And school events? If Ezra had something, my dad would move mountains to be there. But when it was my turn, if Amy had anything else going on, he'd miss it. There was always some excuse: work, scheduling conflict, some family obligation. I slowly came to terms with the fact that I wasn't really a priority. Still, I kept hoping things would change as we got older. I worked hard to be the good kid. I stayed out of trouble, got good grades, and even tried showing interest in Ezra's hobbies even though they weren't my thing at all. I pushed my feelings aside again and again because I loved my dad and wanted a real relationship with him. But the truth is, Ezra and I were never close, even though everyone around us liked to pretend we were like sisters. As time passed, the gap between us only grew. Ezra was into all the traditionally girly things: makeup, fashion, cheerleading. I was more of a tomboy, into sports, hiking, and burying my head in books. And that should have been okay. Not all step-siblings are meant to be best friends, but Amy always acted like I was the reason we weren't. When Ezra finished high school, Amy threw her a huge graduation party, invited half the town, it felt like. My dad gave a long speech about how proud he was of Ezra and how bright her future looked. I remember sitting there thinking about my own graduation. My dad had taken me to Applebee's and said, "Good job," and that was pretty much it. I told myself it didn't matter. I didn't need a party. I had earned a scholarship and was doing just fine. But deep down, yeah, it still stung. College actually became a turning point for me. Putting some distance between me and the family helped. I could finally just be myself without constantly feeling like I was fighting for scraps of attention. I made real friends, people who liked me just for being me. I got involved in stuff that mattered to me, and for once, I started to feel like I had value. I still called my dad and came home for breaks, but it wasn't the same dynamic anymore. Ezra went to college too, but she struggled with being away from home. She ended up transferring to a local school after just 1 year because she missed Amy too much. Everyone acted like that was totally normal, and of course, my dad was fully supportive. And all I could think was, if I had wanted to transfer because I was homesick, they would have told me to suck it up and deal with it. After graduation, I moved to a different city for work. I found a job I actually liked, made new friends, and built a life I was proud of. Eventually, I met Nomad, my fiancé now, and honestly, he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. He understands me in a way no one in my family ever has. He makes me feel like I don't have to be anyone other than myself, and I didn't realize how badly I needed that until I met him. When Nomad proposed, I was beyond thrilled. I couldn't wait to start planning the wedding. One of the first people I called was my dad. He sounded happy for me, said all the right things about how excited he was to meet Nomad and how he couldn't wait to walk me down the aisle. For a moment, I actually believed maybe we'd turned a corner. Maybe we were going to finally have the kind of relationship I always wanted. But then, 6 months later, Ezra got engaged. And just like that, all the attention shifted. Every conversation with my dad suddenly revolved around Ezra's wedding, how Amy was helping her plan every detail, how they were looking at extravagant venues that cost more than my entire wedding budget. I wanted to be happy for her really, but it was impossible not to notice how much more enthusiasm he had for her wedding than mine. Ezra got married last fall. It was this big, fancy event that basically looked like Amy's dream wedding come to life. My dad walked her down the aisle and gave another one of his long, emotional speeches about how proud he was and how lucky her husband was. I sat in the audience trying to smile, but the jealousy crept in. Not because I wanted a wedding like that, but because I wished he showed even half that excitement for me. Nomad and I are more low-key. We're paying for most of the wedding ourselves and keeping it small, intimate. It's our style, and I love that. But I still hoped my dad would care, just a little more than he seemed to. I kept reminding myself that the day was about marrying Nomad, not impressing anyone. That's what really mattered. We picked our wedding date for spring, and I started planning. My dad told me he was looking forward to it and couldn't wait to walk me down the aisle. That meant everything to me. I started getting excited again, thinking maybe this would be our chance, a moment where he'd finally show that he cared, that I mattered too. But then, 2 months ago, everything came crashing down. I still can't wrap my head around it because what happened was worse than anything I could have imagined. I had called my dad to go over a few wedding details and to confirm that he was still planning to walk me down the aisle. And that's when I noticed it, he got quiet. Real quiet. And that silence should have told me everything I needed to know. Eventually, he said there was something he needed to talk to me about, but that it was complicated and he wasn't sure how to bring it up. I sat there waiting, thinking maybe he was going to say he was having financial issues or some kind of health scare, something serious. But then he dropped a bomb I never saw coming. He told me that Amy didn't want him to come to my wedding at all and that if he showed up, she'd leave him. At first, I couldn't even make sense of what he was saying. It sounded so unhinged that my brain refused to process it. I made him say it again, and sure enough, that's exactly what he meant. According to Amy, me getting married just a few months after Ezra was some kind of petty attempt to steal Ezra's spotlight. She said it was disrespectful to their family. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Ezra's wedding was 6 months ago. She had her big, fancy event. What exactly was I stealing? Memories that were already made? And now, apparently, I'm not allowed to have a wedding at all because it might somehow taint hers? But it didn't stop there. My dad went on to say that Amy also thought I was being manipulative, yes, manipulative, by asking him to walk me down the aisle. Like I was purposely putting him in a position where he had to choose between his families. That's when I snapped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm his daughter. His actual, biological daughter. And somehow, asking him to walk me down the aisle at my wedding, a moment most fathers would be honored to be part of, is now seen as some kind of power play? I told him that this was completely absurd. That Amy was being controlling and selfish and that he needed to step up and tell her he was going to be there for his daughter no matter how she felt about it. But he got defensive immediately. He said I didn't understand how difficult this was for him, that Amy was just looking out for her child, and that maybe we could find some sort of compromise. A compromise? I asked him what that was even supposed to mean. Was he suggesting he could come but not walk me down the aisle? Or maybe he could walk me halfway down and then vanish? Was I supposed to push back the wedding an entire year just so Ezra could have more time in the spotlight? The fact that he was even entertaining these ideas felt like a betrayal. Then he said the thing that broke me, that he hoped I could understand his marriage to Amy was important to him, and he couldn't risk losing her over this. In that moment, it was like everything finally clicked. He was choosing Amy again, and this time, he wasn't even hiding it. He didn't even try to fight for me. I hung up the phone because I couldn't speak. I was too angry, too heartbroken. I spent the entire day sobbing, trying to make sense of what just happened. Nomad was amazing through it all. He just held me while I crumbled and kept reminding me that we'd figure it out together. That no matter what happened with my dad, we were still getting married, and our day would still be perfect. But I couldn't shake the image of my dad walking Ezra down the aisle just 6 months earlier, grinning with pride, giving that emotional speech. And now he was telling me he couldn't even show up to mine, not because he didn't want to, but because his wife told him not to. That's when I realized something. This wasn't really about Amy. Not deep down. This was about how my dad had never, not once, fought for me. Never truly made me feel like I was just as important as his new family. I called him the next day. I was calmer, but done pretending this was okay. I told him flat out, if he chose not to come to my wedding, then he was also choosing to end our relationship. I wasn't going to keep begging him to be my dad. He started crying, saying he loved me and that this was tearing him apart, but he didn't know what to do. I told him the truth, he didn't know what to do. He just didn't want to do it because it would be uncomfortable. Because it would make things harder with Amy. He kept saying that maybe someday I'd understand, that he never wanted things to turn out like this, and that maybe after some time, we could patch things up. But I told him I was done. I was finished being the daughter who was always asked to wait, to compromise, to be understanding while he consistently chose everyone else over me. I said he had made his choice, and now he needed to live with it. And after my wedding, I didn't want him reaching out anymore. He begged me not to go through with cutting him off. Told me I was being too harsh, that I'd regret this later, and that shutting him out wouldn't solve anything. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. Not about what he felt. Because clearly, he hadn't cared about what I felt in a long, long time. The saddest part is, I think I always knew deep down that this moment would come. He'd been showing me who he was for years, and I just kept hoping he'd change. But when he walked Ezra down the aisle and then refused to do the same for me, it was like the final proof. The nail in the coffin that I had never really been the daughter he prioritized. So I called every vendor and told them, no father-daughter dance. No one walking me down the aisle. I'd do it myself. And you know what? Once I made that decision, I felt this massive weight come off my shoulders. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need his presence. I was still going to have a beautiful, meaningful wedding day. Nomad's dad offered to walk with me, which was incredibly kind. But in the end, I decided I wanted to do it on my own. My mom has been amazing through all of this. She stepped up to help with last-minute details and told me how proud she is that I stood my ground. She even admitted she wasn't shocked this happened. She said my dad's always been a people pleaser who takes the path of least resistance, even if it means hurting the ones who should matter most. The wedding's 3 weeks away now, and I'm genuinely excited to marry Nomad and start our life together. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still carrying hurt and anger over how my dad handled everything. Some of my relatives have been reaching out, urging me to make peace before the big day. Telling me that family is family, and I'll regret not having him there. But I don't think they get it. My dad stopped being family the moment he let his wife's feelings override my entire wedding. I'm tired of everyone expecting me to be the bigger person. Tired of being told to forgive when I'm not the one who created this mess. The thing that really stings is that my dad keeps sending these long, emotional texts about how much he loves me and how sorry he is for everything, but he still hasn't said he's changed his mind about showing up. He wants forgiveness without accountability. Love without effort. And I can't keep accepting apologies that come with no real change. Last week, I blocked his number. Not out of spite, but because I needed to protect my peace. I couldn't keep letting his messages ruin my day. Honestly, the silence has been kind of nice. I think the reason I've been feeling more at peace lately is because I'm no longer glued to my phone, waiting to see if my dad will text me or randomly decide to show up at the last minute. The guessing game is over, and that alone has been a relief. My bridal shower is this weekend, my mom's throwing it for me. All of my closest friends will be there, and so will Nomad's mom and sisters. I'm actually excited for it, like genuinely looking forward to it. It's going to be full of people who love me for who I am and actually want to celebrate this moment with me. But I'll admit, part of me still questions whether I was too harsh. Like, am I being unreasonable by cutting my dad out of my life entirely over this? Some days I feel rock solid in my decision, no doubt, no guilt. Other days, I catch myself wondering if I burned a bridge that might have been reparable. I keep going back and forth between feeling empowered and feeling like maybe I overreacted. So yeah, am I the jerk for telling my dad he's dead to me and permanently cutting ties because he chose his stepfamily over walking his own daughter down the aisle? Update 1. I can't believe I'm even back here giving an update so soon, but so much has happened since that first post, and I need to get it off my chest before I lose my mind. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented and told me I wasn't crazy. Knowing I wasn't alone and how I felt really grounded me. So, the wedding happened. It was last weekend. And it was perfect, absolutely everything I hoped it would be. Even though the days leading up to it were a complete circus, and I'm still mentally unpacking all of it. Up until the bridal shower, everything was going great. That day was exactly what I needed, just me and all the women in my life who love and support me. No drama. No tension. My mom was glowing with happiness, and Nomad's family? They've practically adopted me. It honestly made me feel like I was stepping into a family that chose me. The energy was nothing but joyful. But then, exactly 1 week before the wedding, I got a phone call at 7 a.m. I didn't recognize the number because I had blocked my dad's usual one. And when I picked up, it was him. He told me he had left Amy, that he was staying in a hotel, and that out of nowhere he wanted to come to my wedding and walk me down the aisle after all. I just stood there in my kitchen, in my pajamas, trying to wrap my head around what I was hearing. I asked him what happened. Why the sudden change? Apparently, things had been getting worse between him and Amy ever since I went no contact. She kept picking fights over the wedding, saying I was selfish, that I was trying to sabotage Ezra's marriage just by having mine so soon after. Which makes zero sense. But it didn't stop there. She told my dad that if he really cared about her and Ezra, he'd cut me off completely. That he needed to call me and say he never wanted to see me again. That I was no longer welcome in their home. That they were his real family. And for once, finally, that was his breaking point. He said that's when it hit him. Amy wasn't just asking him to miss my wedding. She was asking him to erase me from his life forever. And in that moment, he realized he couldn't do it. That no matter what, I was still his daughter. And he needed to be there for me. Amy completely lost it. Screamed at him. Said he was choosing me over her and that she was done being married to someone who wouldn't put her first. Then she kicked him out and told him she was filing for divorce. I'd love to say I felt pure relief, but honestly, I was confused more than anything. Happy, sure, but also overwhelmed. This was 6 days before my wedding. I'd already emotionally prepared myself for walking alone. I had made peace with his absence. I told him that. And he just cried harder. Begged me to let him come. Said he knew he'd screwed up but that he wanted a chance to make it right. I didn't know what to say. It felt like he was only choosing me now because Amy made it impossible to keep both sides happy, not because he finally understood that I should have mattered all along. So I told him I needed time to think. Then I sat down with Nomad and my mom to talk it through. Nomad, bless him, said it was completely my call and he'd support whatever decision I made. My mom warned me to be cautious, reminded me that if things didn't work out with Amy, there was a chance he'd go right back to her and leave me hanging again. Later that day, I talked it out with my therapist. I started seeing her a while ago, right after all this wedding drama started. And she helped me cut through the noise and ask myself, what did I actually want? Not what I thought I should want. And when I really sat with it, yeah, I still wanted my dad there. If he was truly showing up for me, not out of guilt, not because Amy kicked him out, but because he loved me, then I wanted him there. So I called him back and told him he could come. But only if we had a serious conversation first. He agreed, and we met for coffee the next day. That talk was rough. I had to say things I'd been holding in for years. I told him how badly he'd hurt me, how his constant prioritizing of Amy and Ezra had chipped away at our relationship long before this wedding ever came into the picture. He listened, and he cried. He admitted he'd failed me as a father. Said he'd been so caught up in trying to hold that marriage together that he neglected the one relationship that should have never been up for negotiation. He told me that when Amy demanded he cut me out entirely, it finally hit him just how much time he'd already lost with me and how much more he stood to lose if he didn't make a change. He said he was sorry for not standing up for me sooner. Sorry for making me feel like I didn't matter. Was it a perfect conversation? No. I mean, how could it be? You don't fix years of pain over one cup of coffee. But it felt real. For the first time in forever, I felt like he saw me. Not as some add-on to his new family, but as his daughter. So yeah. He walked me down the aisle last Saturday. It was emotional. It was complicated. And honestly, it was kind of perfect. I was nervous right up until the moment it happened, scared he'd flake or change his mind again. But he didn't. He was there. He looked proud. He smiled. And right before he gave me away to Nomad, he whispered that he loved me. The rest of the day was a dream. Nomad looked incredible. The weather couldn't have been better. Our friends and family were all there, smiling and celebrating, and for the first time in months I felt totally at peace. We laughed, danced, stuffed our faces with cake, and it really hit me, I was the luckiest woman alive. My dad gave a short toast at the reception. He talked about how proud he was of the woman I'd become, and how sorry he was that it took him so long to figure out what really matters in life. And even though there's a lot of healing still to do, that moment? That was a start. He told me how grateful he was that I gave him another shot to be the kind of father I always deserved and that he was fully committed to rebuilding our relationship. And yeah, it wasn't like none of the drama had ever happened. I think there's always going to be a part of me that remembers how close he came to picking Amy over me. But still, it felt like we had a real shot at starting fresh. Maybe we could build something better from here. Then yesterday, everything got flipped upside down again. I found out that Amy and Ezra have been going around telling everyone in their circle, family, friends, whoever will listen, that I'm the one who destroyed my dad's marriage. According to them, I'm the selfish, manipulative daughter who couldn't stand that Ezra had a beautiful wedding. So to make myself feel better, I had to ruin her family. They're apparently claiming that I forced my dad to choose between me and Amy, that I gave him some kind of ultimatum, and that I'm the reason their marriage ended. It's a complete lie. And it's infuriating, because Amy was the one who demanded my dad cut me out of his life permanently. She made that the condition, not me. Now I'm terrified that people in our extended family, especially the ones who don't know me well, are going to believe their version of the story. That I'll be seen as the homewrecker who broke up a marriage, when all I did was try to include my dad in one of the most important moments of my life. When my dad found out what they were saying, he called me immediately furious. He said he was going to call everyone and set the record straight. But I told him not to waste his energy. I don't want to get dragged into some messy she said situation. I don't want to live in that chaos anymore. All I really want is to focus on being married. To enjoy my life with Nomad and not constantly look over my shoulder wondering what kind of drama Amy and Ezra will stir up next. Still, it hurts. It hurts that after everything, they're still twisting the truth to make themselves the victims and paint me as the villain. It makes me wonder if my dad will really stand firm now that they're pressuring everyone to take sides. Will he stick to his decision? Or fold again? Nomad keeps telling me to let it go. To focus on us. He says the people who really know me, the ones who matter, already know the truth. And the ones who don't, they're not worth stressing over. And I think he's probably right. But it still stings knowing people might think awful things about me because of lies I can't control. Anyway, I'm married now. That's the part that matters most. But I wanted to share how it all turned out, because so many of you followed my story and offered such kind, thoughtful advice. Update 2. I didn't think I'd be back with another update, but things have gotten even more complicated and, honestly, just weird since the wedding. And now I feel like I have to talk it through, because I genuinely don't know if I'm handling this the right way anymore. It's been about 6 weeks since the wedding. Nomad and I have been settling into married life, finding a rhythm, and just enjoying this new chapter. My dad and I have been slowly trying to rebuild what we lost. We talk pretty regularly now, and to his credit, he's been showing up for me more than he ever did before. Then, out of nowhere last week, I got a text from Ezra. She asked if we could meet up for coffee, just the two of us. I stared at my phone for a solid 10 minutes, wondering if I was seeing things. We hadn't spoken since before the wedding, and honestly, I thought that bridge had burned to ash. I showed the message to Nomad, and he immediately had his guard up. He thought maybe she was trying to trap me, or manipulate the situation like Amy had done. But I was curious. I needed to know what she wanted to say. So we met at a cafe near my house. And I'm glad I went because what she told me completely flipped everything I thought I understood. Ezra looked drained, like emotionally and physically exhausted. She started off by apologizing for the way her mom had treated me all those years, for how the wedding mess played out. And that alone caught me off guard. I never expected that from her. Then she dropped the bomb. Amy had been lying. To both of us. To everyone. She'd been playing this long game, feeding us both fake stories about what the other one was saying, manipulating every situation to drive a permanent wedge between me and my dad. Ezra told me that Amy convinced her I had been saying awful things about their family, that I was trying to turn our dad against them. Which, of course, was never true. But it gets even worse. Turns out, Amy had been planning to leave my dad anyway. She'd been having an affair with some guy from work for over a year. The wedding stuff? It was her out. Her excuse to end the marriage without admitting she'd cheated. According to Ezra, when I got engaged, Amy saw an opportunity. She created this situation where no matter what my dad chose, me or her, she would still come out looking like the victim. If he skipped my wedding, she'd say he was a terrible father who abandoned his daughter. If he came to my wedding, she could claim he chose me over his wife and broke the family apart. Either way, she got to look innocent. Meanwhile, I was just collateral damage. Ezra told me she found out the truth by accident. She overheard Amy on the phone with the other man, bragging about how well her plan had worked. Ezra was devastated. She told me she felt guilty for not seeing it sooner and for not standing up for me when it mattered. She said she always knew her mom didn't like me but figured it was just the usual stepfamily friction. Then she said something that really stopped me in my tracks. She admitted she had always been a little jealous of the bond one had with our dad. That even though Amy pushed hard to make Ezra the favorite, she could tell he loved me in a different way. Because I'm his daughter. She said Amy noticed it too, and that's part of why she worked so hard to create division between us. Out of jealousy. I didn't even know what to say. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. For years, I blamed myself for not being good enough, for not earning my dad's attention or love. And now I was being told that Amy had been working behind the scenes to sabotage that relationship the whole time. And as much as I've resented Ezra, I felt sorry for her too. She just had the rug pulled out from under her entire view of her own mother. She asked me if I could ever forgive her for staying silent, for believing the lies, for not defending me. She said she wanted to try and build a real relationship now that we both knew the truth. And I told her the truth, I don't know. We've never been close. We were more like roommates than sisters. But I appreciated her coming forward, and I wasn't going to shut the door on something that might grow into something better. I told my dad everything. He was crushed. He realized Amy had been manipulating him for years, using me as a pawn. He said suddenly a lot of things made sense: why Amy would always create drama when something important was happening in my life, why she'd get upset any time he tried to connect with me. He's filed for divorce now. Apparently, he's trying to protect his assets, since she was the one who cheated. But Amy's still trying to spin the story, claiming he abandoned the marriage the moment he chose to attend my wedding. The legal stuff is messy and confusing, and I don't fully understand all of it. But what's clear is this: Amy's still doing whatever she can to come out looking like the victim. All of this has made me realize that I was right to be angry. I was treated unfairly. But I was also blaming the wrong people, at least, partially. My dad should have seen what was happening. He should have protected me better. But Amy went out of her way to twist everything, and he fell for it. Now I'm trying to figure out what comes next. I want to rebuild something with my dad, but the damage is still there. And while it helps to know the full truth now, it doesn't erase the hurt I carried for years. Nomad's been my rock through all of this. He keeps telling me I don't need to decide anything overnight. That I can take time, move at my own pace, and only let people in when I'm ready. My therapist agrees, and thank God for her, honestly. She's been helping me sort through this mountain of emotional baggage one piece at a time. So I guess my question now is, how do you move forward with people who hurt you, even if they were being manipulated? How do you decide whether to open that door again, or keep it shut for good? If anyone out there has been in a similar spot trying to rebuild relationships that were damaged by lies and manipulation, I'd really love to hear how you handled it. Thanks for sticking with me through all these long updates. Your support has meant more than I can say. Just knowing I wasn't alone in this has made the biggest difference. And for the first time in a long time, I finally feel like my story is mine again. Not Amy's. Not Ezra's. Mine.